Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Healing Conversations. My name is Einav Avni. I am an alignment coach and energy healer. In this podcast, Healing Conversations is all about natural healing of anything physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and so on. And today in the studio, I have Sarah Dawkins. Sarah, it's wonderful to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you, Einav. It's great to be with you and your audience.
Wonderful. So tell us something about you. Let's get started.
Well, I was raised by a nurse and I became a nurse myself because I wanted to help people in their vulnerable times. And I aligned with Sarah the nurse. But hospitals, medicine and doctors was all I knew. So when I was challenged by a nurse colleague about my beliefs in pharmaceuticals and using them at home, I was really shocked because that's all I knew. But that actually led me onto my own journey of self-healing. Did a lot of research and started tweaking my diet and lifestyle to see what I could do. I was reading about other people that had healed themselves, but it was all new to me. So I made small tweaks and healed long-standing acid reflux, eczema and psoriasis in about a month. So that massively opened my eyes to natural healing because, I've never known about it, never did anything. So once I started seeing those tangible results in my own body, I started believing how powerful my own mind and body are. And I went along a whole healing journey of not just those, but chronic pain, candida, bulimia nervosa, PTSD, underactive thyroid, burned out adrenal glands. But I did end up with a really dark, deep depression with suicidal thoughts because I was so conflicted living at home a natural life, one that I'd changed to live in, versus going to work and giving pills and working with people post-surgery and having to follow that medical model and keep people in that system. And I felt I was keeping them stuck in that system. So that conflict sent me into that massive downward dark spiral.
I can imagine the conflict and how interesting that you were able to do that research for yourself and find out what works for you. But I'm really curious about that. So obviously you were experiencing eczema, psoriasis, and the acid reflux. What was your initial journey like? Was it mostly trying to going down the pharmaceutical route of whatever pills and little advice that the Western medicine has, versus really realizing that you can do things better by yourself?
Absolutely. And I'd taken antacids for years, decades. And I'd used steroid cream because that's all I knew. But once I changed my diet and lifestyle, I initially cut out gluten and dairy. But because of my own knowledge and lack of knowledge, I only looked in that what I now call the physical plane, so nutrition, hydration, sleep, exercise, all the physical things. I wasn't aware of the mental health, the emotional health and the spiritual health at that time. That was part of my learning as I went down that line. So just literally doing a bit more exercise, and when I say exercise, just walking and cutting out gluten and dairy, but also eating a healthier diet rather than fast foods and processed foods. So my diet became more wholesome, if you like. And so that's where I started, and that is how I healed those three conditions initially, which then led me to understand the power that we hold that we're not told about.
And the question is, what made you realize that actually food is probably the first thing that needs to be changed?
Just researching online and reading around people, and the first hits that came up were the real basic, stop eating gluten and dairy and get outside more. along that physical pillar, as I call it. And that's all that I could see at the beginning. And that's what I thought healing entailed, just those in that physical pillar. It wasn't till way down my own healing journey I learnt about the other things.
Mm-hmm. And what was the next step? I mean, like you say, you discovered the physical pillar or the nutritional one. What came next?
It was as I started to heal and become conflicted, because I healed the candida with cutting out sugar, and then the chronic pain, I started seeing a chiropractor and doing chiropractic exercises. So I was still really in that physical pillar, doing the physical things without looking at the other things. It wasn't until I hit rock bottom in that dark depression. The doctor wanted to medicate me. I've done that before, didn't like it at all. So I said, no, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know I'm going to heal myself. And it was actually while I was out walking the dogs one day that I kind of looked up, and it was spring, and the trees all had buds and blossoms growing on them. There was all the spring flowers on the ground. There was a little stream bubbling alongside the path. So that's when I started to feel more, not quite so dark, not quite so bleak, and becoming more aware. And intuitively, I didn't know what I was doing at that time. Intuitively, I started practicing mindfulness and gratitude. Didn't know what they were at the time, didn't know what I was doing, but I was just like, oh, that's so beautiful, oh, how wonderful that we've got that bit of blue sky in the UK. And as I progressed and started to feel a bit better, I realised what I was doing. It was a few months down the line, and I thought, I wonder if I could do some meditation. Didn't know anything about meditation, so I did the sit on the floor with the fingers in the mudras and, just sitting there and wow, my mind suddenly started this whole conversation all by itself about who am I, or who do you think you are, you're just, worthless, nothing. So I went online and found some guided meditations, which was great because my mind had to shush while I was listening in and making the pictures, doing the visualizations. And I at first just started wanting peace within, can I just sit for 5 minutes, listen to this guided meditation and find a sense of peace within myself, because I was just all over the place. And then I started to progress as I started to feel a bit better too, wanting to be more. And my husband said, why don't you set a business up? I'm like, I have no idea what that entails. I've only ever been employed. So I went to classes at university to understand what setting a business up looked like, and started to meditate on being an entrepreneur, but not just any old entrepreneur. The voice inside my head was going, no, you need to win awards. And I realised now that was because it was to validate myself. And I did. I meditated on that, and I became a multi-award winning entrepreneur. But I was still a nurse. I was no longer in the hospital giving out the pills, doing doctor's orders. I was running my business but subcontracting to a legal company, a DNA company, a training company. So I was no longer in the hospitals, but I was still having to sign that register every year to say I would fulfil the nursing standards. Mm. And that, whilst some of the conflict left because I was no longer in the hospital, I still had conflict signing that nursing register to say I would uphold the nursing standards. So the mental aspects of it there came on board, realising as I was healing what I was doing. And as I was doing that meditation, I realised there was a spiritual aspect of it, which was just coming back to that inner voice within us. Whatever name, people call it all sorts of different names. The name is irrelevant. The fact that we need to come back inside of us and listen to our inner voice. And then it wasn't until I did my coach training, I realised that there was an emotional aspect of it. And that is about healing your past and understanding your triggers in the present are coming from the past too. So you can heal what you know, And then when you're triggered, you can start looking at what you don't know that your body's showing you that is there. And that was a huge key, was that emotional healing. So through all of my healing, I devised 4 pillars, if you like: the physical, the mental, the spiritual, and the emotional.
So I want to take you back to what you said at the beginning about realizing how dark everything was, and really finding the path to get you out of that. Because what I notice a lot with the work that I do with people, it's really that how challenging it is for people to actually stop this down spiral and being able to say, like you said, all of a sudden I looked up and it was spring, but even that is not necessarily enough to kind of fuel the next step of still feeling a little bit better and a little bit better. And I'm really wondering what are some, what advice you might have for people that really feel, and also feel emotionally, mentally, but also feel physically in their body, that there is no hope and that it is very dark, and of course maybe it's to do with their healing journey, and it's been going on for such a long time. And so how do we find, how can people find the energy to actually start climbing up of this really dark place?
I hear you, and it's incredibly challenging, because I've been there in that darkness, looking at ways to take my own life, thinking there is no hope, and how am I going to go on? And the first thing to recognise is that we don't actually want to take our lives. When we look into it critically, we actually want the suffering to stop. And by taking our lives, we see that as us taking control to make the suffering stop, because it's something that we can control, because everything seems to be out of our control. So recognise that it's the suffering that we want to stop, not the fact that we want to take our lives and take ourselves out of this world. And the other point is, and this is really challenging too, nobody can save us. People can help us, but they can't do it for us. And we have to take that step. And before I was in that dark position, my comfort zone was huge. And when I got to that place, my comfort zone was literally tiny, teeny tiny, like a penny, because I was just so in this deep, dark abyss. And it was awful. And I totally understand that lack of hope, because I could barely function through the day, let alone thinking, how am I going to get out of this? But I did. And the point is, we have to take baby steps forwards. So for me, because I'd set up a business as an entrepreneur, a friend took me to a networking meeting to meet other people. And that really challenged me, because A, I didn't want to be there, and B, I didn't want to speak to anybody. But I also knew that to help myself, if I wanted to succeed in business, I had to network and meet people and talk to people. So that very first networking meeting, I stood there. I wanted to hold her hand. It was so bad, but I didn't. But I was absolutely shaking to my core. And when I was speaking to people, my voice was shaking with the profound anxiety that I felt, because I didn't want to be there. The second time I went was ever so slightly easier, because I'd done it the first time. And the thing is, the more you do it, the easier it gets. But it is so challenging to take that first step, whether it's go for a walk outside, not necessarily go to a networking meeting. Take yourself outside and make yourself walk. You don't have to look anybody in the eye. Look at the ground. That's all I did when I first started. Didn't even realise, because there was nothing going on in my head other than, it's dark, it's deep, what am I doing? Get outside and walk. And know that your body will possibly shake. And if somebody speaks to you, your voice will possibly shake. But the more you do it, the easier it gets. And nobody can do that for you. Somebody can hold your hand and take you out, take you shopping, take you out for a walk. but they can't make you walk. You've got to make that choice as part of your healing to step outside your comfort zone. And the more we do it, the more confidence we build. And the more confidence we build, the easier it is.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess the question is really, it's that thing, right? Because especially when people are suffering from chronic conditions and how they've been suffering with them for such a long time, they start to tell themselves it's not going to happen. Like they're putting it back in that bucket of I've tried everything and nothing works and it's never going to work and all of that. So yes, absolutely what you're saying is that it's not even about, yes, there is a belief in there somewhere, but it's really like contracting for yourself to say, I'm going to stay out of this and let things happen and just give it a try. And, maybe check in with myself after, doing it for a week or whatever. But it really is about that kind of separating between everything that you've tried so far and something that, logically even might work. And I want to ask, as you were saying, with your chronic pain and your situations that you found yourself, what was it like with family and friends? How was it to navigate this relationship between your own suffering and the support that you needed or received or not received and so on?
Parents and friends was incredibly challenging because they wanted me, because they were born in that medical model, raised in that medical model, they wanted me to take the pharmaceuticals from the doctor to heal, in air quotes. I knew from what I'd done on my own journey that I could heal this without pharmaceuticals, because with every pharmaceutical comes a side effect, and I know that from being a nurse, I know that from my own journey. And I didn't want that. I didn't know how I was going to heal initially. It was trial and error. Try with my diet, try with the walking, with the chronic pain, try the chiropractor who gave me manipulation and acupuncture and red light therapy. And you just have to try. But the other flip side of that is our beliefs can also stop us. If we believe we need a doctor and a pill, nothing outside of that will help us. But if we, like I did, when somebody challenged me, I went looking and started reading that other people had healed. I'm like, well, are they special? Is there something they're doing that I can't do? Are they more special than me that I'm not worthy to heal? So that was a lot of emotional healing internally, looking at what I believed, but also where that belief had come from. So the belief that I needed pharmaceuticals for the first 41 years of my life came from my parents, because that was their belief. And once I'd started tweaking my diet and lifestyle and seeing tangible results, I'm like, okay, so I don't need pharmaceuticals because I'm now doing this myself. So I challenged my belief that I needed pharmaceuticals and changed it to my mind and body are powerful and they will heal themselves. And we only have to look at, if we get a cut, a small cut or a bruise, do we take those to the doctors and get pharmaceuticals? No, because we know that our body will heal those. So if we start thinking, well, if our body can heal a cut and a bruise, is it possible it can heal something else? And it absolutely is.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, right, it's another step in that journey of like you say, changing your belief system. And there's a big difference, actually, I think, between understanding that pharmaceuticals don't help or that there's other ways versus then saying, actually, and it can help me, right? And I can heal. And of course, such a huge change of everything, because like you said, right, when you make that decision, when you make the belief that actually there is another way that you can try, then that's a whole different journey that is starting. But then another something that I hear a lot from my clients is then how do you let go of that old self-image and actually start a new flow with that belief that actually yes, I can heal, I will heal. It can take some time, but I'm on that journey.
Yeah, and it's about being open-minded and receptive to it as well. Because if, as I say, if you closed-minded and you believe that you need a pill, nothing externally will help you outside of taking a pill. But if you're open-minded enough to go, well, let me try this, let me try that. And the secret for me, because when you look at it, I learnt it in bits, which was great. But when you look at it as a whole picture, it can be so overwhelming. So it's a case of just try something small, because a little bit of something is better than a lot of nothing.
And so, how were things with your parents as you started to heal and prove to them that actually there is another way?
They thought I was crazy. They still think I'm crazy. But it is what it is, and we're all on our own journey. And I can have compassion for their understanding because I walked in their shoes. Whereas now I've seen life differently and walk a different path. They can't see what I now see.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about, the spiritual and emotional pillars of healing naturally. Spiritually, where did that take you? When you say spiritually, do you mostly talk about the mindfulness and the meditation and the visualizations stuff?
And the coming back to that little voice inside of us, because most people listen to the ego, which shouts at us. That little voice needs quiet time to be heard or felt.
Mm-hmm. And then the emotional one?
The emotional one, I think, for most people is the most challenging, to come to terms with our past. Because what's happened has happened in our past. And nothing we can do can change that. But when we do the emotional work on ourselves and understand ourselves more, we can come to terms with what's happened and find a way to reframe it and look at it through different eyes. And when we do that, that puts us in the role of resilience. We look at what skills we've built up over what we've been through. We can also see what unhealthy coping mechanisms we've developed from our survival skills and work with those. But it's about finding the positives. What have we learnt about ourselves? What skills have we built around what we've been through? And what can we be more compassionate with ourselves for what we've learned? Because we have learned some unhealthy coping mechanisms. And it's about giving ourselves that love and saying, you did that because of what you went through, and that's okay. That's not wrong. You did what you needed to do to get through whatever it was. But now that whatever it was is finished. It's not happening now in this moment. So let's bring ourselves that love and compassion that we would give to somebody else who's going through similar or even different circumstances, but needs that love and compassion, because we always forget to give it ourselves.
Yeah. So the emotional pillar is for me is what I do with my clients most of all, and I so completely believe that there is an emotional root cause to anything that we are suffering from, and it's all about the messages from the body and how we learn to interpret them to really bring us back into what I call alignment. And it's so interesting. It's because you're saying to come to terms with our past. What I find is that a lot of the time it's yes, looking at the past, looking at traumas, looking at how we understood life, regardless if true, not true, the eye of the beholder, right? It's how you tell the stories to yourself. But really, now that you are who you are, and having been through all of this journey of trying to heal and trying everything and nothing works and all of that, it's the come to terms is really, I find that there's a lot of feeling of victimhood in there that is really holding people back. And now changing out of victimhood and actually coming to terms. But for me, it's like there is, because when you understand, when you get into acceptance, and you can really see that nothing happened to you, but really, with all due respect, it happened for you, then how do we move it forward?
Yes, and I'm a big believer that we have to sit in that victimhood and really feel into it before we can start moving forwards. And that's where I was in that dark night of the soul, and those dark times. I'm like, look what's happened to me, I'm the victim in this. These people have done this to me. And it's important to sit and feel that, to validate our own feelings, but just not live there. And it's easy to live there in that victim state until we become self-aware about what we're doing, and then start reframing and looking at it through different eyes.
Yeah, I completely agree, of course. But I am still curious, because I notice from a lot of people, and again, mostly with people, if someone comes to me and tell me that they have TMS or suffering from TMS, mind-body syndrome,
Yeah,
I know immediately that they are still stuck in victimhood.
absolutely.
And it's really interesting, because they now know that it's not structural, it's more emotional. They know everything, and yet they haven't made that decision to leave all of this behind. And some of my own feeling of really all sorts of feelings really came from people, exactly that, TMS people that are still stuck in victimhood. And they tell me about all of these trauma points, right? There's a list of, I don't know, 19 points, as they say. If you have at least 4 of them, then your trauma is beyond belief or whatever. But the thing is that this is another something to hold on to to keep you in victimhood.
Absolutely, yes. And I love the work of Dr. Sarno with
Yeah,
TMS, yes.
yeah, he's definitely, well, he's amazing. Absolutely. But I guess the question is really, like you say, what is that? How do we help people to see that they've already done so much work, because they've done so much research, and they've tried so many things, and they really have done a lot. So how do we help them to really just kind of cross that corner, and get onto the next phase of really healing themselves naturally?
I like to bring people back into their inner child, because when we've got this fear still ongoing, which is causing our symptoms, it's not us as the adult, it's us as the little child, how we were when we went through that trauma. And that's how we're holding it inside of us. The adult knows logically, but our inner child has no idea of our logical adult brain. And if we can talk to our inner child, and acknowledge what's happened, and say, what's happened has happened, but you don't have to go through that anymore. We're living now, and that's finished. And I love you unconditionally. And do silly things, go out and play on the swings and skip in the park, and do things that bring joy back to your inner child, and help them to not just hear your words, but feel that you really do love them by doing those things that you might not have done as a child, or you might have missed out on. And as your inner child feels safe, you yourself as the adult will feel safe.
Yeah, it's very interesting, to recognize that, exactly what you're saying. There is an age, a physical age, where the trauma is stuck, and we are still operating from that age, really. And so now, I mean, for me, with the work that I do, also with the healing, it's going back there and releasing it, and noticing that there's so many layers to all of this trauma, and this, the age that we are stuck at. But yeah, I guess that when people are ready, then this is just one of the things that they're willing to go through.
Absolutely. And the other thing as well that was challenging for me to accept, is the quote by Leonardo da Vinci that a third of people will always see, so they'll be open-minded and see what we're saying. A third of people will see when shown, so they will be open-minded enough to go, oh, okay, yeah, I see that. But a third of people will never see. And those are the people that we can't help, because they will never open their mind to see what we see. And that's okay, because that's their journey. And it's not for us to try and change them or make them, or keep trying to make them see, because they're never going to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I say the same thing. It's really, we really can't convince anyone. And I was just doing a video just the other day about really how do you care for someone with chronic condition or cancers, and exactly that, nagging or putting pressure on someone to get into the decision to heal or to do whatever the right thing might be for that person is not necessarily, well, it's actually not helpful at all. It puts another layer of barrier between the person and healing.
Yes, and it is understanding who those people are and allow them to be who they want to be, who they are, and accept that they're never going to work with us, and they will continue their journey in their own way. And I believe that's their soul contract. Their soul knew what it signed up to in this lifetime, and it will just run out and play out what it signed up to.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And so nowadays, who are the kind of people that you are working with?
A whole range of people, predominantly females, but occasionally some men. Most the problem that they present with isn't really the problem. There's a huge emotional, I would say 90% of the people I work with have an emotional underpinning that's manifesting in symptoms. I do work with a few people who don't want to get sick and are looking at what they can do to protect their health. And to be honest, it's the same four pillars of health and healing: the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. They just need to work with those four pillars to stay well, as well as to heal. So it is predominantly a lot of my work is along that emotional level of healing.
Mm. And in the work, as you're working with people, what some things that surprise you in people's journey into healing or into health?
Some people come forward and approach me to be their coach, and they want to continue to be healthy, but over the sessions I realise there's an emotional block there. And when I've asked about it, they are absolutely in denial. No, there's nothing there, nothing wrong with me. I'm like, okay, that's fine. If that's the way you feel, that's the way you feel, and let's work up what we can do with you to stay healthy. So that was surprising the first time I came across that, because they actively wanted help, but then when I challenged something, they didn't want help. But again, that's their journey, and I will work with them how they want to work. Other people are so receptive, literally the opposite end of that spectrum. When I've asked questions to get them to tap in deeper, they've had those aha moments and realised that the symptoms that they've got now have that emotional underpinning. And they're like, okay, right, so how can I work with this now? What can I do? And they're totally open-minded and receptive, and that's beautiful. Some people obviously are in the middle, and they're like, well, I see what you're saying, but I'm not quite ready to go there yet. And as I say, we're all on our own journey. I work with people however they want to work with me. And if they don't want to be pushed into a corner, then I'm not going to push them into a corner. I want to try and help them to understand what is causing the symptoms in their body, and to understand the wisdom. There's so much wisdom in our symptoms, and help people to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the people that work with you, or that you work with them, how do you decide, or maybe it's deciding with them, I don't know, which pillar should go first, or is there always, the emotional, of course, but also maybe the physical, or how do you work this out?
I ask them to just tell me about themselves, tell me their life story, and then use compassionate conversations to help them to dig in deeper. And it depends on what they tell me as to which pillar I go into first, depending on the symptoms and what they're telling me about their lifestyle. I could go into any one of those 4 pillars.
Mm-hmm. And what do you have any, I guess a lot of the things that people are saying, right, or people outside of this circle, is that, they believe that there are things that are not curable. Now, I'm not talking about things that are too far gone, like some cancers, for example, but I am talking about otherwise. Is how are you finding things? Is everything curable?
I believe most things are curable. Things like, not genetics, chromosomal anomalies. My beliefs say, well, if we believe and we can change our body and get it into healing mode, then realistically, why could we not heal that? But on a practical level, I believe most issues that we've got now are manifesting because of our beliefs and our lifestyles. So we absolutely can change that. I have had some people message me through Facebook and say, multiple sclerosis is not healable. They've made a specific profile up, sent me that message, and then deleted the profile. But that's their journey. If that's what they believe, that's what they believe. And they're not open to me challenging that belief because they've deleted the profile, so I can't even answer the message. But I've got people in my book and had people on my podcast that have healed multiple sclerosis, and there isn't just one way. Everybody's done something different. So there's lots of different ways. So it's about understanding people who is open and willing to accept responsibility for their beliefs, their actions, their lifestyle, and are looking to heal and what they can do.
Have you found any similarities or common grounds, or kind of emotional events or traumas or so on for different illnesses and ailments and stuff, or is it really anything can cause anything, in your opinion?
I believe anything can cause anything, and it's not per se about the trauma itself. It's about how everybody holds it within themselves. So somebody who was sexually abused can heal that through their own inner work, but somebody who was teased at school for the way they look maybe, or their home circumstances, maybe hold that differently. And that, what we would call a small t trauma, that being teased, can be held in the body and cause much greater symptoms than somebody who maybe have been sexually abused. So it's not the actual trauma, it's about how that person's holding it based on their based on their personalities, based on their family beliefs, and who they are as a person, their genetics, their lifestyle, their personalities.
So I found with a lot of people that I work with, if they tell me that they either are currently seeing a therapist or have been through many sessions of with therapists, for me, I really know that they basically have been recycling their story. And although I have nothing against therapy, and you do what suits you, no problem at all. But that's what I feel. That's really my belief, that when now people tell me that they're going through therapy, that I know that they're just recycling the story and they're not likely to actually heal or move forward in a way. Even if it has been beneficial and they can see the benefit, in some way, for me, it's really, therapy is not the right tool to heal from, chronic conditions and stuff like what you do, what I do, and so on. How do you, because, people that come to you, I imagine that some of them say to you, yeah, I'm already seeing a therapist, so
Yes.
I'm not interested in the emotional pillar, for example. How do you manage that?
I ask them, what their expectations, what they think they're going to get from me that they're not getting elsewhere. I ask them why they chose to come to me if they're already having therapy. And I asked them, are they open-minded to, because I had a gentleman a couple of years ago who said he's had therapy his whole life. And he said to me, Sarah, nobody ever asked me the questions that you asked me today. I'm like, okay. So, clearly we all work at different levels and all therapies are different, and it's just about finding somebody that has the key, if you like, to unlock what it is that you need unlocking to be able for them to see it.
This is something that I find I struggle a little bit in my practice because, like I said, I do the alignment coaching and energy healing, and a lot of the time people would come to me for the healing, and in the healing I do emotion code, body code, and belief code, so it's really releasing trapped energy from the body. And people, yes, even if I just did the healing, people would feel benefits in terms of the symptoms and pain and stuff like that. And yet sometimes they don't. And that's really like, oh, now what? But the thing that the struggle that I have is that I believe really that people would heal even faster if it was really just with the alignment coaching. Now, I don't like the word coaching, but it is, I guess, I don't know, alignment healing. So it's how do I help them see that, yes, they came to me for the energy healing, but actually they would benefit so much more from the alignment coaching, because when they understand that they are operating from fears and limitations and compromises, and now they can see how they can turn it all around and get back into alignment and empowerment and harmony, everything falls by the wayside. Not immediately maybe, but it does. So for me, that's really, it's interesting how, yes, people come to you with their own agenda and they're not necessarily even ready to hear, my expert advice of really what might be more beneficial. So that's something that I found with some of my clients.
Challenging as well.
Yeah, it's really I mean, for me, it's because with the coaching, it's active healing. I actually teach you how to not do what you've done until now, how to do things differently, which are more empowering, in alignment, harmony, all of that. And the healing is more passive. Yes, I clear stuff from your body, from your energy field, but you're going to do the same thing, then, you might bring it back on, right? So it is really interesting, I think, how people are saying, yes, I am ready to heal, but there's so many layers and so many shades of where people are actually on the healing journey.
Yeah, and I come back to the soul contract. I can only work so far. If you're not willing to take that extra step, then I can't. There's nothing that I can do until you're willing to take that step.
Yeah, totally resonate with me. So what is next for you? Where is the future?
I would like to do more speaking to get my message across to more people that they can heal themselves. And I'm guesting on podcasts like Your Beautiful Self to reach more people. And I'd like to see myself on platforms around the world speaking to large groups of people, maybe in corporate, just to keep sharing that message because until I was 41, if somebody had said you can heal yourself, I'm like, oh, yeah, right. So because I had such a profound awakening, I'd like to help people like the old me who couldn't see it or didn't see it or couldn't believe it, to challenge their beliefs and start looking at what they believe and why they believe that. And I have started another book about empathy, It's still on my computer in skeleton stages, but it's something I'm working on when I've got the time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's very interesting about this message. So that leads me to my next question, which is how do you find people's awareness and recognition that actually there is a possibility to heal naturally? Is it still a myth like it was all these years ago, or do you find that people are actually more open to it nowadays?
I actually think people are a lot more open to it now. And especially after going through the pandemic, there's a lot more people looking outside of Western medicine for answers. They haven't quite got to the stop looking outside and start looking inside for the answers. But it's a journey. And, I see that stepping away from Western medicine to look for answers in different arenas as a really good thing, because for me, they're showing that they're taking responsibility for their own health and wellness. And once they take that step, they're a lot more open-minded as to what might be available to them.
I was listening today on BBC Radio 4. They were talking about how in the UK nowadays, adults with ADHD, they facing a state of limbo because a lot of NHS are no longer offering diagnosis and all of that. And I was listening to that because, first of all, I know that with the work that I do, ADHD, you can definitely reduce the symptoms. You can definitely, create a different reality for people. They can create a different reality for themselves, I should say. But I was listening to this whole conversation because it was such a scare policy. And the whole thing was how terrible it is and how there's so many people and how, if you don't diagnose it early, what will happen and where will you go? And I was like, enough. What are you doing? Why are you scaring people so much? Why are you making it into... I'm not saying, people not experiencing and I'm not saying it's not there, but I'm saying you don't have to make it like the problem and fear that you're giving people, especially that I really do believe that a lot of people with ADHD now go down this route because it's so popular. It's everywhere, so probably maybe I have it. And so what I'm trying to say, as we are talking about spreading the message of natural healing and you can heal yourself, this is a part of it, because the system is really hanging on. They're fighting back, and they're going to make sure that they scare you enough to really believe that they are the only one with answers. And people like us are saying, actually, we're not going to tell you not to take your medicine, right? That's not what we do. But we are definitely here to show you that there are other ways, and we'll guide you through it.
Yeah, and actually I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 48.
Right.
On all that time, I always knew I was different, and over the time I've learnt to work with it, and sometimes use it as a superpower, but other times when it's like running out of control, learn to just sit down and stop and take that moment. And we don't even need to take a long time. We can just 2 minutes, 5 minutes, bit of breathing work, bit of mindfulness, bit of gratitude. We absolutely can work with it. But also diet and nutrition, we can work with it. But you see, the hospitals and the doctors are just not aware of that side of it. They just look at a symptom or a condition and pluck a pill out of the air that the pharmaceutical companies have told them that works with that diagnosis. They're almost oblivious to anything outside of pharmaceuticals and call us flukes if we, heal ourselves. We're not the norm, but actually there's so many of us. Yeah. We are becoming the norm.
Yeah, it really is. And one thing that I say a lot to people is, if you do your research, of course, and if even just one person managed to heal themselves from your condition, then maybe you should, look into it more, because if it happened with one person, it can definitely happen with another. So, don't limit yourself. But it's only when they're ready to hear, they will hear.
Absolutely. And they'll go looking and start asking questions.
Yeah. Sarah, we're nearly time for us to finish for today, but what message would you like people to walk away with?
I love your audience to understand that we are such powerful beings. Our mind, our body, our soul, they all work together. And Western medicine, sadly, has pulled them out. There's a cardiologist and a pulmonologist and a dermatologist and there's an ologist for every organ, every part of us. But nothing works in isolation. Everything works together. So healing has to be holistic. You can't just look at one part of your body without looking at it, how it interacts with other parts of your body. And to believe that healing happens. And I go back to the cut and the bruise. We don't ever think, how am I going to heal that cut and bruise? We know that we will heal. So let's extrapolate that out into a bigger arena and think, well, multiple sclerosis, autoimmune, mental health problems, I can heal that. My body knows how. And it's just a case of understanding the symptoms and finding the wisdom in the symptoms. And once we do that, we can work with that. And that is the root cause of the symptoms, understanding that wisdom. And when we work with that root cause, we heal, and we heal permanently. Unless we step back into the behaviours and thoughts that cause those symptoms, then they'll reappear. But then we know what we're working with, and that's a sign from our body going, hey, you just step back, you just did that thing, you did that behaviour, you're thinking that thought. Let's just pull it back and turn it back around. So just please know that healing does happen, and you absolutely can heal yourself.
Absolutely. And I was, as you were talking, I was thinking about, so many people that I've spoken with throughout the years that this podcast is alive. And it's so interesting how there's really, it's like a two camps things, the people that heal themselves and they're like, of course, and the other people that, on their healing journey, and there's so much fear and doubt and all of that. And it's just so interesting how you either hear or hear, and I guess there's a third part of the ones that are actually, trying at the moment. But so it kind of makes me to conclude that really adding to what you're saying is that, yes, there is a lot of fear in change, but actually when you bring in more trust and looking around and listening to everything that you just said, for example, it helps. It helps because there's so many people that have done it, and you're very welcome to join this camp of people who heal themselves naturally.
Absolutely, yes.
Wonderful. Sarah, thank you so much for being here with me today and for everything that you shared and all of your wisdom and all of the experiences. Everyone watching, listening, and so on, all of Sarah's contact information and stuff will be in the show notes. So please, like, comment, share, and, have a conversation, because this is what we're here to do. Spread the message that healing yourself is possible. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Einav. Appreciate you.
Thank you.